AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée use my late wife's wedding dress and causing a huge family blow-up? My wife, Mara, passed away 3 years ago after a long battle with an autoimmune disease. We were married for 12 years, dated for 5 before that, and she was one of those people who seemed to radiate calm wherever she went. When she got sick, she handled it with more grace than I ever could have. Losing her gutted me. I still visit her favorite hiking trail every month and talk to her like she's walking beside me. Among the things of hers I kept, the most precious is her wedding dress. She designed it herself with a friend who worked in costume design. Cream-colored with embroidered vines down the bodice and a subtle train that flowed so smoothly it looked like water. She looked unbelievable in it. I keep it in a protected garment box in my closet. I don't take it out often, but knowing it's there has been a strange form of comfort. My younger brother, Tyler, got engaged last year to his fiancée, Lila. They're both in their late 20s, earnest, idealistic, and really into sustainable weddings, thrifted decor, borrowed attire, locally sourced flowers. I respect it. They've been planning for months and seemed excited and organized. 2 weeks ago, they came over for dinner. Eventually, the conversation turned to wedding costs. Lila joked that she wished people would lend wedding dresses the way they lend centerpieces. Tyler gave me a look that immediately made my stomach drop and said, "Actually, that's kind of what we want to talk to you about." I'd already guessed where this was going, but I still let them speak. Lila launched into this emotional, heartfelt pitch about how she wanted her dress to have meaning and how borrowing something from a couple who had a strong, loving marriage felt like an honor. She said she had always admired how Mara carried herself and how our relationship was something she hoped to emulate. She then asked if she could wear Mara's wedding dress. I didn't even think. I just said no. Not a harsh no, just a firm, immediate one. The air shifted instantly. Lila's face fell. Tyler looked caught between frustration and sympathy. Lila asked if I could at least think about it, and I told her I understood her intentions were good, but Mara's dress wasn't up for borrowing. It was one of the few things of hers that still felt like it belonged to us alone. That's when Lila started to cry. Not dramatic sobbing, but quiet tears. She said she felt stupid for asking, that she thought it would be beautiful, that she didn't realize it would upset me. I told her she hadn't upset me, but the dress was something I wasn't ready to part with, even temporarily. Tyler stayed silent for most of it, but after they left, he sent me a long message basically saying he thought I'd been unnecessarily harsh, that this meant a lot to Lila, and that lending a dress wouldn't change the fact that Mara was gone. That one stung. Over the next few days, the situation somehow spread to my parents. My mom texted me saying she understood why I didn't want the dress worn, but maybe I could consider having it altered into something new that only used part of the fabric. I said absolutely not. My dad told me that while he supported my decision, I should realize that refusing so quickly might have made Lila think I didn't like her or didn't consider her family. I explained that this has nothing to do with liking her. She's great, but Mara's dress is one of the few tangible memories that still feels untouched. Meanwhile, Tyler is acting cold. He thinks I'm being possessive and weirdly sentimental. He also said something that really pissed me off, that Mara would have wanted people to get joy from her things instead of letting them sit in a closet forever. I told him not to speak on her behalf, especially on something he barely knew anything about. He hung up on me. 3 days ago, Lila came by my house alone. I thought she was going to apologize or maybe clear the air. Instead, she asked if she could at least see the dress in person so she could feel connected to Mara's story, even if she didn't wear it. I told her I wasn't comfortable taking it out because every time I open the box, it takes a lot out of me emotionally. She looked disappointed again, thanked me for my time, and left. Now my family is split. Some say the dress is mine and my boundaries are valid. Others say I'm letting grief control me, and that sharing the dress could have been a beautiful gesture of welcoming Lila to the family. A couple of cousins even said borrowing wedding dresses is becoming more common, and I'm gatekeeping sentiment. I keep replaying the moment I said no, wondering if I sounded harsher than I meant to. Maybe if I'd softened it or explained the emotional weight more gently, this wouldn't have turned into a family saga. But I can't imagine a version of reality where I hand over the most personal, irreplaceable piece of Mara's memory, let it be altered to fit someone else, and watch it walk down the aisle for a different love story. I know the dress will never be worn again. I know it sits in a box, but it's mine. It's hers. It's ours. It represents something I'm not ready to let anyone else step into. Still, the guilt is creeping in. Did I overreact? Am I holding on to something too tightly? Or am I justified in keeping the one physical thing that truly brings me comfort? So, AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée use my late wife's wedding dress? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for telling my sister she couldn't bring her therapy ferret to my wedding even though everyone insists I'm overreacting. So I never thought I'd be the person writing something like this. But here we go. For context, I'm getting married in about 3 months. My fiancé and I have been together for 7 years, and we're both incredibly excited but also stressed to the extreme with the typical last-minute details. My family has always been a little eccentric, but things reached a new level when my younger sister, Tara, announced last year that she was adopting a ferret named Juniper. Now, I don't hate ferrets. They're fine in theory. A little weasel-y looking, maybe a bit smelly, but ultimately harmless. Tara, however, treats Juniper like a child. She buys it matching outfits, takes it on walks in a custom bubble backpack, and posts long, emotional captions on social media about how Juniper saved her life and heals her inner child. I always figured this was just Tara being Tara and didn't expect it to become a problem for anyone else. Then, 2 months ago, she dropped the bomb that she had started labeling Juniper as her therapy animal. Not a trained service animal, mind you. A self-declared emotional support ferret. She told us she needed Juniper at all major life events because crowds made her anxious. When she first brought this up, I tried to be supportive. Tara has always struggled with anxiety and social overwhelm, and I genuinely want her to feel comfortable. I told her I'd help her figure out guest lists and seating so she'd be around people she knows. I suggested quiet rooms she could retreat to at the venue. I even told her she could skip being in the wedding party so she didn't feel pressured. But she insisted the only thing that makes her anxiety manageable is Juniper. Cue the actual conflict. Our venue is a renovated historic estate that my fiancé and I both fell in love with the moment we saw it. Think old stone walls, heavy wooden beams, and antique furniture. It's gorgeous, but also strictly controlled due to preservation policies. When we signed the contract, the venue coordinator emphasized their no pets rule. Only legitimate service animals with documentation were permitted. They were extremely clear about it. When Tara told me she would be bringing Juniper, I said we'd have to check with the venue. I already knew the answer, but I wanted to avoid confrontation by letting them deliver the bad news. Sure enough, the coordinator said absolutely not. No ferrets. Not even contained. Not even for a few minutes. They had issues in the past with animals damaging irreplaceable textiles, and ferrets are apparently notorious for chewing and hiding things. When I told Tara, she acted like I had personally banned her child from attending. She started crying, saying I didn't care about her mental health. She said families should support each other and that I was prioritizing a building and some fancy chairs over her well-being. She also insisted that emotional support animals counted as service animals and said the venue legally couldn't deny them. I told her that wasn't true and even sent her resources showing the difference. But she doubled down and said the venue was discriminating against her. What made things worse was my mom taking Tara's side. My mom called me and said I should make an exception, that Tara is fragile, and that if she doesn't have Juniper, she'll probably have a panic attack or skip the wedding altogether. I told my mom that I didn't want Tara to skip and that I would help her in every way I could, but I couldn't break the venue contract or jeopardize the wedding we've planned for over a year. My mom got cold and told me that weddings are about family, not rules, and she accused me of being controlling. Then the group chat drama started. My cousin, who is very into New Age healing and posts crystals and manifestation reels every day, chimed in saying that animals are sacred emotional stabilizers and I should be honoring Tara's journey. My aunt wrote a long paragraph about how I was operating from a place of fear and ego. Even Tara's roommate, who I barely know and did not invite to the group chat, jumped in saying that, as someone who has witnessed Tara's anxiety firsthand, I was being cruel. At this point, I felt like I was losing my mind. I didn't want my wedding to turn into a giant family blowout, but the idea of having a ferret running around near antique textiles, food tables, and guests in formal attire felt absurd. Also, my fiancé is mildly allergic to ferrets. Not severely, but enough that if Juniper started shedding or rubbing around, he might spend the evening sneezing and congested. My fiancé has been incredibly patient through all this, but he finally said he didn't want to be itchy and coughing at his own wedding because my sister needed her comfort ferret. 2 weeks ago, Tara called me again and tried to compromise by saying Juniper could stay in her purse or carry her the whole time and wouldn't even come out. I told her I appreciated the effort, but the venue wouldn't allow it under any circumstances. She got angry again and said I was refusing to try. She accused me of choosing aesthetics over family and said she felt unwanted. I told her I desperately wanted her there, but couldn't bend this particular rule. She hung up on me. Now, most of my extended family is divided. Half think I'm making a reasonable decision. Half think I'm some kind of tyrant bride destroying Tara's emotional safety. My dad is trying to stay neutral, but privately told me he thinks Tara is being dramatic and that mom is enabling her. Meanwhile, Tara has stopped responding to my messages entirely. She hasn't RSVP'd, and I'm terrified she's just not going to show up. Here's the thing. I know anxiety is real. I know Tara isn't doing this maliciously. But I also know she has gone to large events before without Juniper, including concerts, festivals, and even a crowded holiday party last year where she posted about how much fun she had. I can't shake the feeling that this has become more about attention and validation than actual emotional necessity. But maybe I'm being harsh. Maybe I'm failing to understand her needs. Maybe I should find some creative workaround I haven't considered. But also, it's my wedding, and it's one day. I'm already stressed enough without worrying about a ferret chewing antique upholstery or causing my fiancé to sneeze his way through our vows. So, AITA for putting my foot down and telling my sister she cannot bring a ferret to my wedding. AITA for blowing up at my family during what was supposed to be a relaxing weekend and then refusing to apologize even though everyone insists I ruined everything. For context, I'm 32 and the oldest of 3 siblings. Growing up, I was the default babysitter, the one expected to compromise, the one who handled conflict, and the one who smoothed things over whenever someone else messed up. That dynamic never really went away, even though we're all adults now. My brother and sister are 28 and 25, and our parents still treat them like they need to be coddled while I get voluntold into responsibility. It's been a sore spot for years, but I usually let things slide to keep the peace. A few months ago, I suggested we all spend a weekend at my parents' lakeside cabin. It's only used a handful of times a year, and I thought it would be nice to reconnect. Because my job has been stressful, I planned this as a chance to decompress, sit by the water, read, and not worry about anyone else's needs. Everyone agreed, and we set a date. I made it clear to my parents and siblings that this was meant to be a relaxing trip, not a chaotic family project. I even said, point blank, that I was not going to cook for everyone or organize anything beyond bringing my own stuff. Everyone said that was fine. Fast forward to the weekend of the trip. The moment I walked through the cabin door, I realized things were already off. My parents had arrived earlier and apparently decided that since I was good at organizing, they would wait for me to help clean and set things up. The beds weren't made, the fridge wasn't stocked, and there were spiders in the corners because apparently nobody thought it was necessary to sweep. My mom's exact words were, "We know you like things tidy, so we figured we'd leave it for you." My brother and sister laughed like it was a joke. I didn't think it was funny. I shouldn't have said yes, but I sighed and helped clean because the alternative was sleeping in dusty sheets. Once that was done, I went outside, sat on the deck, and tried to read. 10 minutes later, my brother wanted help connecting his Bluetooth speaker. Then my sister wanted to borrow sunscreen because she forgot hers. Then my parents wanted to know what we should do for dinner. It became this constant stream of tiny requests, each one chipping away at the relaxing weekend I had envisioned. At one point, my sister came over and said she wished I had made the pasta dish I usually bring to family gatherings. When I reminded her, I said I wasn't cooking for everyone this time. She rolled her eyes and said, "You always say that, but you always do it anyway, so why not just save us the trouble?" That was the first crack in my patience. The next day was worse. My parents planned a family hike without asking if I wanted to go. They woke me up at 7:30 in the morning by knocking repeatedly on my door. When I said I wasn't going, they acted genuinely offended. My dad lectured me about how time with family is precious and how I was being selfish for wanting alone time. By the time they left for the hike, I was already irritated, but I figured I would finally get a few peaceful hours. Instead, my brother's dog, who he brought without telling anyone, ran into my room and tore up the book I was reading. I like physical books, especially the ones with notes and underlines, and this was a signed copy of a novel by one of my favorite authors. When my brother got back and I showed him the shredded pages, he shrugged and said, "Well, you shouldn't have left the door open." I had not left the door open. The latch sticks, and the dog apparently nudged it. I was furious. That night, everyone sat around the fire pit drinking and talking. I stayed inside because I was emotionally exhausted and trying not to explode. But eventually they called me out, saying I was being dramatic and killing the vibe of the trip. My sister went so far as to say she felt uncomfortable around my energy, which made everyone else nod in agreement like I was the problem. Something in me snapped. I walked outside and told them exactly how this weekend felt for me. I said I was tired of being the default helper, tired of being expected to fix things, tired of being treated like the family maid. I told them I organized this trip to relax, not to be everyone's backup plan. I mentioned every little thing that had happened. The cleaning, the constant interruptions, the cooking expectations, the ruined book, the passive-aggressive comments, and said I was done. Not temporarily. Done, as in I was packing up and leaving in the morning. They all stared at me like I had grown 3 heads. My mom started crying. My dad said I was being ungrateful. My brother said I was overreacting over a book. My sister said I was making everything about myself, as usual. They kept saying I ruined the trip. I told them the trip was already ruined the moment they decided my boundaries didn't matter. I left early the next morning before anyone else woke up. Since then, every family group chat message has been passive-aggressive, if not outright hostile. My mom keeps saying families don't keep score and that I should apologize for the outburst because my siblings are hurt. My brother insists I owe him an apology for calling him irresponsible. My sister is telling extended family that I lost it and made the weekend miserable. My dad won't speak to me at all. I haven't responded to any of them because I know if I do, I'll just get sucked back into the same dynamic. My closest friends say I finally stood up for myself, but a small part of me wonders if I should have handled it differently. AITA for blowing up after years of being the designated responsible one, and then refusing to apologize because I feel like they finally saw how exhausted I am. AITA for refusing to pretend my cousin's baby looks like his late father, even though the whole family expects me to. My family has always had a weird relationship with grief. Instead of talking about it honestly, they build these strange rituals or narratives that everyone is expected to follow, like it's a group performance where breaking character is a sin. I've mostly managed to avoid getting pulled into the more dramatic ones, but this time they came for me directly, and apparently, I failed the role. My cousin Leo passed away 1.5 years ago. He was young, only 30, and he left behind his pregnant wife, Mia. His death devastated everyone, understandably. Mia gave birth to their son, Noah, 3 months after the funeral. People in the family rallied around her, helping with everything, and honestly, she handled the situation with incredible strength. But then, slowly, a narrative began forming among the older relatives. They started insisting that Noah was the spitting image of Leo. At first, it was just sentimental stuff, like saying he had Leo's smile or Leo's eyes. But as Noah grew, the comments got more elaborate and oddly specific, like they needed him to be a tiny reincarnation of his father. They said his cries sounded like Leo's laugh, that the way he drooled was just how Leo used to drool as a toddler. It went from sweet to unsettling very quickly. The thing is, Noah looks exactly like Mia. Exactly. Same face shape, same brown eyes, same curly hair, same dimples. The kid is basically her clone. Anyone with functioning eyesight can see it. Mia even jokes about it. But the rest of the family acts like acknowledging that is disrespectful to Leo's memory. They aren't comforting Mia anymore. It's more like they're trying to overwrite her presence in her own child. I've always been the person in the family who tells the truth too plainly for their liking. I don't sugarcoat things, not because I'm rude, but because my brain simply doesn't understand the point of pretending something we all know isn't real. But I also know how fragile people can be when it comes to grief, so I've kept my mouth shut about Noah's appearance. Until last weekend, we were having a big family barbecue at my aunt's place. Mia was there, holding Noah, who is now a very active, extraordinarily chubby 1-year-old with a head full of curls and the most expressive eyebrows I've ever seen. I was playing with him, making faces, and he was giggling. Mia laughed and said, "He looks exactly like I did at that age." My mom's sisters turned their heads so fast, I'm surprised no one sprained something. Aunt Carol said, "Oh no, sweetie, he looks just like Leo. Look at those eyes." Mia smiled politely, but it was strained. She's used to this routine, but that doesn't mean she enjoys it. Then my grandmother chimed in with, "His whole face is Leo's. Even the way he lifts his eyebrows. Total copy." Now, everyone in the family knows I inherited the dramatic eyebrows of our side. They are impossible to miss. Noah's eyebrows are Mia's, which are smaller and curved differently. Noah lifted them when Grandma said that, and I couldn't help myself. I laughed, not loudly, just a normal chuckle, and said, "Those are Mia's eyebrows, Grandma. He looks like her." Silence. The kind that makes your ears ring. Grandma said, "Why would you say that?" I shrugged and said, "Because it's true." My mother gave me a warning look, but I wasn't trying to be confrontational. It was just an honest observation. But apparently, this broke the spell, and suddenly everyone started talking over each other about how I didn't understand grief or the importance of Leo's legacy. Aunt Carol went as far as saying it was cruel and insensitive to deny that Noah resembles his father. She said it was comforting for the family to imagine Leo living on through Noah. Mia was holding Noah tighter and looking extremely uncomfortable. I told everyone, why can't Noah look like Mia and still be Leo's son? Why does he have to be a carbon copy for you to feel better? That only made things worse. My mom pulled me aside and whispered that I had ruined the mood and hurt Grandma. She accused me of making everything about myself instead of letting people grieve how they needed to. Afterward, my phone blew up. Messages ranging from "you owe Grandma an apology" to "you embarrassed everyone and made Mia upset." But Mia texted me separately to say she agreed with me, that she appreciated someone finally acknowledging that her son looks like her. She said she's tired of being erased in the narrative of her own family and that she didn't speak up because she doesn't want to be the reason people resent Noah for not looking like Leo. I told her I'd support her no matter what, but it still feels weird that I'm the villain to everyone else. Now my entire family is divided. Some say I spoke the truth and that the others need to stop projecting. Others say I'm cold, tactless, and cruel for shattering a comforting illusion. My grandmother has been avoiding me since the barbecue, which is huge because she usually calls me almost every day. I genuinely didn't mean to hurt anyone, but I also don't think it's healthy or fair to force a baby to carry the weight of everyone's grief. Still, the backlash is intense, and I'm wondering if I should have stayed quiet. AITA for refusing to pretend my cousin's baby looks like his late father. AITA for refusing to give my sister a second chance at being part of my wedding after she pulled a stunt that nearly ruined it before it even happened. I'm 28, my sister Mara is 25, and we've never been super close. Growing up, she was the golden child in some ways, pretty, charismatic, great at getting people on her side. I was the quiet, reliable one. As adults, we coexist fine, but I've learned to keep boundaries because she can be dramatic and impulsive. Despite all that, I genuinely wanted her to be part of my wedding. I asked her to be a bridesmaid, not out of obligation, but because I hoped it would be a chance for us to connect. My fiancé, Evan, and I planned a smallish wedding, about 80 people. We paid for almost everything ourselves, and we were very clear about our expectations. No surprises, no secret performances, no speeches we didn't approve, no outfit changes without checking with me. I wasn't trying to be bridezilla. I just know my sister. For months, things seemed fine. She came dress shopping, showed up to a few planning meetings, and was generally supportive. But I started noticing little comments from her. Stuff like, I know you want everything boring and simple, but maybe I can add something fun to it. Or, don't worry, I'll make sure people aren't falling asleep during the ceremony. I brushed it off, but I had this gnawing feeling she was planning something. Fast forward to 2 weeks before the wedding. My mom calls me in a panic because she thinks she accidentally saw something in Mara's car. My mom was helping her jump the battery and saw a garment bag with a sequined, bright red dress inside. Not maroon, not wine-colored, fire engine red. Our color palette was forest green, cream, and gold. My mom asked her what the dress was for, and Mara apparently got flustered and said it was just in case she wanted to change for the reception because she deserved to stand out a little too. I immediately called Mara and asked what the dress was. She said it was just a backup dress because the bridesmaid dress wasn't flattering enough and she didn't want to look like a blob in photos. I told her in no uncertain terms that she was not wearing that dress to any portion of the wedding. She got irritated and told me I was being controlling and insecure. I reminded her that she agreed to the bridesmaid dress and that this wasn't about how she looked, it was about respect. That should have been the end of it. But 3 days later, I get a text from Evan's cousin, who works at a local performance venue. She said she heard through a mutual friend that my sister had booked a special surprise reception performance involving a choreographed dance with 2 of her friends. My stomach just dropped. I confronted Mara again. She first denied it. Then she claimed it was just something small and fun. Then she said it was to honor my big day. Then she said I was being ungrateful because people love when the bridesmaids do something unexpected and cute. I told her she was being removed as a bridesmaid because clearly she couldn't respect boundaries. She exploded, full screaming, crying, accusing me of humiliating her. My parents got involved, begging me to just let her do the dance or just let her wear the dress for a few pictures to keep the peace. I refused. I told them I'm tired of being expected to bend because she can't handle not being the center of attention. Here's where things escalated. A week before the wedding, Mara sent a long group message to my entire family claiming I kicked her out to punish her for being confident, that I hate when she gets attention, and that she was heartbroken to be excluded. I didn't even know she had the nerve to do this until my phone blew up with relatives calling to ask what was going on. I sent a calm message explaining that she violated boundaries, tried to plan a performance we expressly said we didn't want, and intended to wear something wildly off theme. Some relatives understood. Others told me I should have let her have fun. My grandmother said I should have just embraced the dance because young people like that sort of thing. The wedding itself went smoothly. She came as a guest, wearing a dress that fit the palette, shockingly. She did not attempt a performance, though she looked furious the entire night. After the wedding, she unfollowed me on every platform and hasn't spoken to me since. Now, some extended family members accuse me of breaking sisterhood over a dress and say I should have given Mara another chance. I am honestly exhausted. I didn't want drama. I didn't want a scene. I just wanted the one boundary I set. Don't hijack my wedding. To be respected. Evan thinks I handled everything perfectly. My best friend says my sister is lucky I didn't uninvite her completely. But part of me wonders if I was too harsh removing her as a bridesmaid. Maybe I should have waited to see if she would actually go through with the dance or the dress change. Maybe I acted too quickly. Then again, every time I picture my wedding, I imagine how it would have felt to see her sashaying and wearing that red dress, doing a performance she knew I didn't want, with everyone staring at her instead of the ceremony we paid for and planned for months. So, AITA for refusing to give her a second chance and removing her as a bridesmaid? AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law name her unborn baby after my late daughter. Before anyone jumps on me, I need to explain the whole context, because this situation has exploded in my family, and now half of them aren't speaking to me, while the other half keeps texting me to apologize behind everyone else's backs. I feel like I'm losing my grip on what's reasonable. My wife, Claire, and I lost our daughter, Mia, 3 years ago. She passed away unexpectedly at 5 years old due to complications from an infection. It was the worst thing that has ever happened to either of us. There isn't a day I don't think about her, and both of us have been in therapy since. There's a small bench in a park near our home dedicated to her, and sometimes I go sit there before work just to try and center myself. Claire's younger sister, Lisa, is currently pregnant with her first child. She's extremely excited, and to be fair, so is most of the family. This baby is sort of the first truly happy event since Mia's passing, so everyone's feelings have been magnified around it. Lisa is loud, dramatic, and tends to treat every idea she has as if it's the most meaningful revelation in human history, but she's usually harmless. About a month ago, she hosted a small get-together to announce the baby's sex. Then, last week, she invited immediate family over again, saying she wanted to discuss names. My wife and I came, thinking it would just be a fun evening tossing around suggestions. Instead, Lisa stood up in the living room and announced, with tears in her eyes, that she had chosen a name with deep meaning. She planned to name the baby Mia. Not similar, not inspired by, not a derivative, just exactly Mia. My wife froze. I mean, literally froze. Her hands went stiff on her lap. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Everyone else immediately started cooing about how beautiful and touching it was. Before I could stop myself, I said, pretty sharply, no. Absolutely not. Lisa blinked at me like I'd slapped her. She said she was trying to honor her niece's memory, that she'd thought long and hard about this, that it was beautiful and symbolic. I told her that Mia wasn't a symbol. She was our child, a real person with a real identity, and that naming her baby the same name wasn't honoring her. It was replacing her. That was when Claire finally spoke. She wasn't yelling, but her voice had that hollow sound I've learned to dread. She said she couldn't handle hearing the name Mia used for someone else every day for the rest of her life. She said she knew Lisa meant well, but the idea made her physically sick. Lisa burst into tears and said we were taking this all the wrong way. Her husband backed her up, insisting we were gatekeeping a name that doesn't belong exclusively to us. My mother-in-law chimed in saying that names get reused in families all the time and that it could help us heal. My father-in-law stayed silent, but looked uncomfortable. I told him that it wasn't just a name to us. It was everything we lost, and that hearing it constantly applied to a new child who would inevitably form her own identity would feel like someone had smudged the lines of our daughter's memory. I said it was unfair and cruel to expect us to swallow that pain for the sake of some sentimental gesture Lisa had fixated on. The room got so tense you could have heard dust settle. Finally, Lisa said she was disappointed in us and that she thought we'd be touched instead of selfish. She said she'd hope her daughter could grow up carrying the legacy of her cousin. I replied that our daughter wasn't a legacy project and didn't need someone else's life to extend hers. We left early. Claire cried the entire drive home, and probably all night. I barely slept. Since then, Lisa has doubled down. She sent a long message accusing us of disrespecting her heartfelt tribute and claiming we had no right to dictate what she names her child. My mother-in-law also texted saying that we let our grief turn us bitter and that maybe hearing the name again in a positive context would be healing. My father-in-law later called to apologize privately, saying he didn't agree with Lisa but couldn't speak up at the gathering. On the other hand, my brother, Claire's cousin, and even Claire's grandmother reached out to say they understood completely and thought Lisa was being tone-deaf and insensitive. Several friends I've talked to agreed with us too, but a few said we were being too rigid and that Lisa probably really does mean well. Here's the thing. I understand that the name Mia doesn't legally or morally belong to us. I know we cannot forbid anyone from using it, but I also believe that social relationships rely on basic empathy, And I can't wrap my head around why Lisa is so insistent on doing the one thing that she knows would hurt us deeply. Naming a baby is supposed to be joyful, not something that rips open wounds. And honestly, even if Claire and I could power through it, I don't want to spend the next 18 years hearing other family members excitedly shout our dead daughter's name every time a toddler runs across a yard. I don't want to wince every time someone posts a photo on Facebook captioned me as first day of school. That isn't healing. That's torture. We haven't spoken to Lisa since the text. She still hasn't dropped the name idea. Claire refuses to attend the baby shower if Lisa sticks with it. I told her I'd support her decision entirely. But now I'm starting to wonder if I should have handled it more gently, or if refusing outright makes me the villain here, especially since half the family seems convinced I'm being dramatic. So I keep circling the same question, and maybe strangers can help me see clearly. AITA for telling my sister-in-law she cannot name her baby after my late daughter. AITA for ruining my sister's wedding over a seating chart dispute. So this is going to sound absolutely crazy, but hear me out. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Lily, 25F, who's been engaged to her fiancé, Mark, 27M, for about 2 years. Our family has always been very traditional, and Lily's wedding was shaping up to be a huge deal. Over 200 guests, fancy venue, all the works. I have to mention that I have a history of being the responsible sibling. I'm usually the one everyone goes to for advice, and I've always been very organized, so naturally I was pretty involved in the wedding planning. I thought I was helping, at least. Fast forward to last month, when we were finalizing the seating chart. Lily and Mark had decided to split their guests by family, friends, co-workers, and some mutual acquaintances. Pretty standard. The problem was that some of my friends and colleagues had been invited as well, mostly because they knew Lily from when we were growing up, and she wanted to include people who mattered to both of us. That's when things got messy. I had a friend, Rachel, who I've known since college. She's loud, opinionated, and has a habit of making passive-aggressive comments if she's uncomfortable, but I thought she'd be fine at a wedding. I suggested that she and a few of my other friends sit at the same table, mostly so they would have a good time together. I didn't see any issue. The problem arose because Lily had placed her fiancé's extended family at a table near mine, and she had carefully arranged it so that everyone was in comfortable groups. But Rachel, for reasons I still don't fully understand, refused to sit at her designated table. She insisted she had to be closer to the dance floor, and ended up asking people at Mark's family table if she could join them. They politely declined, so she came over to me, complaining that she didn't want to be stuck with a table of old people. I tried to reason with her, explaining that the table assignments were not arbitrary and that she needed to respect my sister's planning. She got upset and started loudly complaining to anyone within earshot about how unfair the seating was. I snapped. I told her, in no uncertain terms, that if she didn't sit where she was assigned, she'd be asked to leave. At this point, I was getting frustrated, and apparently my tone was harsher than I intended. It only got worse. Rachel refused, and instead of quietly complying, she started dragging my other friends into her protest. My friends didn't want to make a scene, but Rachel kept talking over them and saying they were cowards for letting the wedding get ruined by old traditions. I finally lost it and walked over to Lily, who was overseeing the table placements, and loudly told her, in front of a dozen other guests, that her seating chart was ridiculous and that she needed to fix this now, or her wedding would be chaotic. Lily froze. She looked shocked, and then Mark intervened, telling me to calm down. I argued that I was just trying to prevent chaos, and that if Rachel and the other friends continued disrupting the seating, it would cause fights at the tables. Mark got frustrated and said, "This is why we didn't want you micromanaging the wedding." I was furious. Rachel eventually got her way, thanks to some other guests letting her switch tables. But during the first course, she started loudly commenting on everyone's eating habits and making snide remarks about Mark's cousins. By the time the dancing started, several tables were tense, some people were glaring at each other, and Lily came up to me crying. She said I had completely ruined the atmosphere, and that she was upset that I had yelled at her in front of everyone. The next day, Lily called me, furious. She said she couldn't believe I had taken over her wedding, and that it was supposed to be her special day. She said my behavior embarrassed her and made her question why she even invited me to help. Mark agreed, saying that I overstepped and caused unnecessary drama. My parents are split. My mom thinks I had a point about Rachel being disruptive, but my dad said I was out of line and should apologize immediately. Here's where it gets messy. Several guests have since reached out to me, saying that they thought I was the voice of reason and that Rachel's behavior was out of line. Others, including a few of Lily's friends, said that my outburst was unnecessary and rude. I feel like I was only trying to protect my sister and her wedding from chaos, but Lily seems to think I was the problem. I've apologized for yelling, but I haven't apologized for the seating dispute itself because I genuinely believe that allowing disruptive guests to go wherever they wanted created more problems than it solved. Lily is refusing to speak to me except for brief exchanges, and Mark hasn't texted me since the wedding. My parents are now subtly pressuring me to make things right with her, but I feel like I was only doing what any reasonable sibling would do to prevent disaster. So Reddit, AITA for ruining my sister's wedding over seating chart dispute? Character count, 6,532 if you want. I can write a second, slightly darker version with more family drama, which tends to perform well on Reddit too. It would be around 6,800 to 7,000 characters. Do you want to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move in with us after she got pregnant? I, 28F, have a younger sister, Lily, 25F, who has always been a bit reckless, and I've kind of been the responsible older sibling by default. I own a 3-bedroom house, which I moved into after buying my first job and paying off my student loans. I live alone, and I like having my own space, my routines, and my independence. I've always been willing to help Lily when she needs it, but I also have limits. About 6 months ago, Lily called me in tears. She told me she was pregnant and that she had just broken up with her boyfriend of 3 years, Greg. Greg wasn't really the kind of guy I would ever trust to take care of anyone. He had a history of being unreliable, and honestly, I didn't think he had his life together. Lily said she had nowhere else to go because their lease was ending, and she was overwhelmed with everything that was happening. Naturally, I felt sympathetic. I offered for her to stay with me temporarily until she figured things out. I was clear that it would be temporary, that I needed boundaries, and that my house wasn't a permanent solution. She agreed. The first month went fine. I helped her with doctor's appointments, prenatal classes, and even financially when she needed extra support. I treated it like helping a family member in a crisis, and I thought we were doing okay. But then around month 2, things started to shift. Lily told me that she wanted Greg to move in with us. I was shocked. I reminded her that he was not reliable, that he had a history of being irresponsible, and that I never agreed to have him living in my house. She said I was overreacting, that he was her baby's father and she wanted him involved, and that it would make life easier for her. I told her no. She got upset and started bringing up how I was selfish, how I had my own space, and that I didn't understand what it was like to be a parent. I tried to explain that supporting someone doesn't mean sacrificing my entire home to someone I don't trust. I offered compromises, like helping her find a small apartment nearby, helping with moving costs, or even letting Greg come for short visits. None of that satisfied her. Things escalated. She started posting on social media about how cruel her sister is and how I refused to support her family. Our mutual friends started asking me why I wasn't helping more, and I felt increasingly guilty. At one point, she even threatened to leave the baby with me for a week while she went on a self-care retreat if I didn't agree to let Greg move in. I said no, firmly, and she left in tears. We haven't spoken much since then, other than brief messages about medical appointments or logistical issues. She recently gave birth, and I visited her at the hospital. Greg was there, and he seemed surprised to see me, but polite enough. After we came home, Lily called again, this time begging me to reconsider and let them both move in. She said it was the only way she could manage financially and emotionally, and that I was being unreasonable. I feel torn. On one hand, I love my sister and want to support her, but on the other, I have worked hard for my independence, and I can't compromise my home and peace of mind for someone who has a long history of irresponsibility. I also fear that letting Greg move and will create tension, make it harder to enforce boundaries, and might even affect the baby if things go wrong. On top of that, I have friends who are offering spare rooms or couches, but Lily refuses, saying she doesn't want to inconvenience anyone else. I've tried talking to her calmly, explaining my reasons, and even suggesting alternative solutions like finding a cheap apartment, applying for financial assistance, or even staying with Greg's family temporarily. But she interprets everything as me being heartless or selfish. She has started telling people that I abandoned her when she needed me most, which hurts because I genuinely believe I have been helping as much as I can without completely upending my life. I'm starting to feel like there's no winning here. If I let them move in, I feel like I'll be setting myself up for months or years of stress and conflict. If I don't, I feel like I might be viewed as the bad sister forever. I've considered at some point offering short-term help, like babysitting or financial support, but I can't see myself opening my home to Greg. My parents are aware of the situation, but they've stayed out of it, saying it's ultimately my decision because it's my house. Some friends tell me I'm being reasonable. Others say I should just let them stay temporarily because it's family, which only makes me more conflicted. I genuinely want to support Lily and her child, but I feel like my boundaries are being completely ignored. I'm worried that if I give in now, it will set a precedent, and I'll feel trapped in my own home for the foreseeable future. I've also considered the possibility of hiring a mediator or counselor to help us communicate, but I don't know if that's realistic, especially with a newborn involved. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister and her boyfriend move in, even though she is now a single mother and says she has no other options. Character count, 6,418 if you want. I can draft another version that is even longer, closer to 7,000, with additional twists and drama to fully mimic the most viral AITA posts. Do you want me to do that? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of his choice of best man. This might be a bit long, so bear with me. I, 28F, have a brother, Mark, 30M, who I've always been pretty close with. Our parents divorced when we were kids, and he was always my protector and confidant. I have always felt like we were on the same team, even as adults. However, recently something happened that has completely thrown me for a loop, and now my whole family is divided. Mark got engaged to his fiancée, Sophie, 29F, about a year ago. At first, I was really excited for him. Sophie is a nice person, and I genuinely wanted to be supportive of their relationship. But over the last few months, I've started to notice some things that made me uncomfortable. Sophie is very controlling and has a tendency to put down Mark, especially in subtle ways that make it seem like jokes, but it's obviously not funny. I tried to bring it up to Mark, but he brushed it off, saying that she's just teasing and that I shouldn't be so sensitive. I didn't push the issue because I didn't want to start family drama, but I couldn't help feeling uneasy. The big problem started a few weeks ago when Mark asked me about his wedding plans. He told me he had already picked his best man, and I assumed it would be his childhood friend or someone he's close to. I was shocked when he said it was Alex, Sophie's brother. I know some people might not see this as a problem, but I have history with Alex, and it's really bad history. A few years ago, Alex was involved in an incident at a party we were both at. He got extremely drunk and made very inappropriate comments toward me, to the point where I had to leave the party early because I felt unsafe. I confronted Mark about it at the time, and while he didn't condone Alex's behavior, he didn't take my side completely, and Sophie sided with her brother. That was part of the reason I distanced myself from both of them over the last few years. I never thought I'd have to be around him again. I told Mark I couldn't be his bridesmaid or even attend the wedding if Alex was going to be a prominent part of the day. He got defensive and said I was overreacting, that Alex had apologized years ago, and that it was time for me to move on. I explained to him that my discomfort wasn't about holding grudges. It was about feeling safe and respected in a situation that is supposed to celebrate him and Sophie. He kept insisting that it was just a silly grudge and that I was letting the past ruin a happy day. I tried talking to Sophie about it directly, hoping she might understand my perspective. That didn't go well. She told me that I was being dramatic, and that Mark was a grown man who could make his own choices. She said if I refused to attend over something as minor as a misunderstanding with her brother, it would make me seem petty and selfish. That hurt a lot because I was genuinely hoping she'd empathize at least a little. After a lot of back and forth, I decided to write Mark a letter explaining that I couldn't attend the wedding under these circumstances. I outlined my reasons carefully, emphasizing that it wasn't about ruining his day, but about my personal boundaries and past trauma. I even offered to meet up after the wedding to celebrate with him privately if he wanted. I sent it and waited, feeling both nervous and sad. The response I got blew me away. Mark said he was disappointed in me for putting my feelings over our family and that he expected better from his sister. He accused me of trying to control his wedding and told me that if I truly cared about him, I would set aside my issues with Alex for one day. Sophie also messaged me, saying she couldn't understand why I wouldn't forgive her brother and that my absence would leave a permanent mark on our relationship. Now, the rest of my family is divided. Some members say I'm in the wrong for making the wedding about myself, and that I should just attend and grin and bear it. Others support me, saying that my feelings and boundaries are valid and that Mark should respect them, especially given the history with Alex. I feel stuck because this was supposed to be a happy time, and instead, I'm being painted as the villain for trying to protect myself. I've been thinking a lot about compromise. I considered attending the ceremony, but not the reception or sitting far away from Alex. But honestly, I feel like any scenario where I have to be in the same room as him would be triggering, and I don't want to fake being okay just to avoid conflict. I also don't want to be the problematic sibling who ruins my brother's wedding, but I feel like attending would come at too high a personal cost. So here I am, Reddit. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because his best man is someone who made me feel unsafe in the past, and he and his fiancée won't respect my boundaries. I want to be clear that this isn't about holding grudges or being dramatic. I genuinely want a relationship with my brother, but I feel like my feelings are being dismissed and that my safety and comfort should matter too. I'm not trying to ruin the wedding, but I also can't bring myself to attend knowing I'll have to interact with someone who caused me significant distress in the past. Has anyone been in a similar situation? I feel torn between family loyalty and self-preservation, and I just want to know if I'm wrong for standing my ground. AITA for refusing to let my stepdaughter live with me after her mother passed away. I, 34M, have been married to my wife, Lisa, 36F, for 7 years. Before we met, Lisa had a daughter, Emma, from a previous marriage. Emma is now 12. When I met Lisa, Emma was around 5, and honestly, I wasn't sure how I'd feel about being a stepdad. I grew up in a pretty independent household, and I never really pictured myself raising someone else's kid. But over time, I genuinely grew attached to Emma. She's smart, funny, and has this stubborn streak that I secretly admire. Lisa and I eventually had a son together, Jack, who is now 6. Our household has been a mix of routines, schedules, and navigating the dynamics between a teenager in the making and a much younger child. Emma and Jack get along most of the time, though Emma can be a bit bossy with him. Lisa and I try to enforce rules fairly, but I'd be lying if I said that sometimes I felt Emma received special treatment just because she's older or because Lisa sometimes softens for her. 2 months ago, Lisa passed away unexpectedly. It was sudden. She had an undiagnosed heart condition, and no one saw it coming. We were completely blindsided. The first week was pure chaos. Emma was inconsolable, and Jack kept asking where Mommy went. I tried to be as present as possible, but I was also mourning deeply. Friends and family stepped in to help, and I started thinking about what was next for us. This is where the real problem started. Lisa's parents, Emma's maternal grandparents, immediately assumed that Emma would go to live with them. I honestly expected that conversation, but I didn't agree. I believe Emma's primary home should be here with me. I love her, I want to raise her, and she's settled here. The thought of separating her from her home, school, and her younger brother felt wrong. When I told her grandparents that I didn't want Emma to move in with them, things escalated fast. They argued that Emma needed her real family to guide her through this tragedy, that I wasn't capable of providing the emotional support a 12-year-old needs after losing her mother, and that Jack's needs were irrelevant. I tried to explain that Emma would still have a close relationship with them, that they could visit, call, and be involved in her life, but it didn't matter. Emma herself seemed conflicted. She cried when she heard about the possibility of moving in with her grandparents. She loves them, obviously, but she also said she didn't want to leave her home or her brother. She said she wanted to stay with me. I felt a bit relieved, but I could tell she was trying to balance loyalty and grief, and it was eating her up inside. At first, I thought maybe we could work something out with her grandparents, like alternating weekends or extended visits. But they refused to consider anything except full custody. Their stance became more aggressive over the next few weeks. They even hired a lawyer to explore legal options to take Emma away. I couldn't believe it. I felt like they were trying to replace me in her life, and it hurt, honestly. I sat down with Emma one evening after a particularly heated phone call from her grandmother. I asked her directly what she wanted. She said she wanted to stay here, that she didn't want to lose Jack or me. She admitted she was scared about losing her mom, and moving in with her grandparents didn't feel like a safe choice. I hugged her and told her I would fight for her to stay. That night, I finally let myself cry for the first time since Lisa passed. Things got worse when Lisa's parents showed up at our house unannounced. They demanded to see Emma and said I was selfish for keeping her from her real family. I refused to let them in, and our neighbors even called the police after hearing the shouting. It was embarrassing and stressful. Emma hid in her room, crying while I tried to explain that sometimes adults make bad decisions, but that she was safe here. Over the next month, the grandparents filed a petition for custody. The case is ongoing, but tensions in the family have reached a breaking point. My brother-in-law, who is normally calm, told me I was destroying Emma's future by not letting her live with her grandparents. Even some distant relatives sided with them, saying a child needs her biological family after such a loss. I've been trying to balance everything: my grief, Emma's grief, Jack's needs, and legal stress. I've asked for therapy for both kids, and I myself see a counselor to cope. I want what's best for Emma, but I honestly feel that staying here in the home she knows with a parent she already trusts and loves is the safest option. I don't think her grandparents should be the default choice just because they're her biological family. I try to talk to friends and extended family about this, but they're divided. Some say I'm doing the right thing. Others say I'm being selfish and that I'm not her parent. It's tearing me apart. I'm constantly questioning myself, wondering if I'm being stubborn or if I'm protecting her from a loving family that might be able to give her a different kind of support. So, Reddit, here I am. AITA for refusing to let my stepdaughter live with her maternal grandparents after her mother's death. I feel like I'm doing my best to keep her safe, loved, and part of the family she knows, but I can't shake the feeling that others see me as overstepping or selfish. I've thought about every possible compromise, from shared custody to supervised visits, but the grandparents are adamant about full custody. I love Emma like she's my own, and I feel like the worst thing I could do is take her away from the life she's always known. Yet, the legal and family pressure is immense, and I keep wondering if I'm the villain in all of this without even realizing it. I just want to do right by her, and I'm exhausted emotionally and mentally. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her uninvited guest list rules. I, 29F, have always had a complicated relationship with my sister, Lisa, 32F. Growing up, we were close but extremely competitive, and as adults, it's been a mix of love, tension, and jealousy, mostly on her side, I think. I try to maintain a polite and supportive stance, but over the years, I've learned to set boundaries because she can be exhausting. Recently, Lisa got engaged to her fiancé, Mark, 34M. I was genuinely happy for her, even though I wasn't invited to her engagement party, which stung, but I brushed it off. Then the wedding planning began, and that's where the issues escalated. Lisa has always been a very controlling person, and it seems like the wedding has amplified that. She's extremely particular about everything: guest lists, seating arrangements, color schemes, and even how people address her. When she sent out the initial wedding invitation, I noticed a line that made me pause. Please only invite people explicitly on this list. No plus ones or extended family not mentioned. I understood at first. It's her day. But then I found out that she had been selectively inviting some family members, but excluding others, not based on closeness or history, but seemingly based on her personal preferences. For example, my cousin Jamie, who is very close to her, got an invite, but my own mother, who is her mother too, was given an awkwardly last-minute RSVP deadline. When I questioned her about it gently, she said, "It's my wedding. I don't have to explain my decisions to anyone." I reminded her that family dynamics are complicated and that excluding people she supposedly cares about could hurt feelings, but she brushed it off. Then came the kicker. She started sending out a final guest list spreadsheet to the family via email. I noticed something strange. She had written a note next to my name that said, "Allowed, but no +1 or boyfriend. Must wear approved outfit colors only." I was shocked. Not only was she dictating my appearance, but she was also refusing to let me bring my partner, Sam, 30M, whom she has met multiple times and has had a friendly rapport with. I confronted her about it, telling her it felt controlling, humiliating, and frankly a little disrespectful. Her response was, "Sam isn't officially family. This is a family event. You'll manage. Stop making it about you." I tried to reason that I wasn't asking for a huge favor, just to attend with the person I've been dating for 3 years, but she dug in her heels. At this point, the conversation escalated. She accused me of being dramatic, overreacting, and trying to ruin her wedding vibe. I reminded her that weddings are stressful, yes, but part of being family is compromising and treating each other with respect. She claimed she was compromising enough by letting me come at all. After several weeks of passive-aggressive emails, guilt-tripping, and awkward phone calls, I finally made a decision. I told her I wouldn't attend the wedding unless Sam could come, explaining that I couldn't sit through an event where I was essentially forbidden from being with the person I love. I also expressed that if she wanted a perfectly curated event at the cost of family relationships, I couldn't support that. She responded with a very dramatic message, calling me selfish, heartless, and the only person who could ruin her dream day. She also sent a group message to extended family painting me as unreasonable and controlling. Naturally, this caused tension and a lot of family gossip. Some people sided with her, saying I was being difficult, while others quietly supported me but didn't want to get involved. Ich stod firm. I couldn't in good conscience attend a celebration that made me feel like a second-class guest. I got a lot of pushback from relatives, including my parents, who said, "It's your sister's day, just go and deal with it." But I felt that doing so would betray my boundaries and my relationship with Sam. Now, Lisa has gone ahead with the wedding without me. From what I've heard, she seemed happy and had a perfect day, at least according to social media posts. I've received a few apologetic texts from other family members, and a handful of mutual friends have reached out to say I might have done the right thing. I feel a mix of relief and sadness. I miss my sister and feel like our relationship has taken a serious hit. I also wonder if I overreacted and should have just sucked it up for one day. At the same time, I feel proud for sticking to my boundaries and not compromising my values or my relationship. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she refused to allow my partner and dictated how I should present myself. Character count, 6572 if you want. I can draft a second version that's even more dramatic and emotionally charged, like some of the most viral AITA posts, while keeping it under 7,000 characters. It could include more family dynamics and gossip, which tends to engage readers even more. Do you want me to do that? AITA for telling my sister she can't bring her new boyfriend to our family holiday after she disrespected me in front of everyone. So, a bit of background. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Emily, 27F, and we've always had a complicated relationship. Not necessarily toxic, but full of the usual sibling rivalry. I'm more of a planner and very detail-oriented, while Emily tends to be more spontaneous and sometimes inconsiderate, which often puts us at odds. Despite our differences, we've generally gotten along okay, except for a few recurring issues. Every year, our family gathers for a Thanksgiving at our parents' house. My parents are in their 60s, very traditional, and love having everyone under one roof. I've been the organizer for the past several years because my mom gets stressed when there's too much to handle. I coordinate the menu, seating, decorations, and everyone's travel arrangements. I genuinely enjoy it, but it's a lot of work. Emily has always been invited to bring whoever she wants, and I've never made a fuss about it. This year, things went south. A few months ago, Emily started dating someone new, Mark. I had met him briefly once at a coffee shop before they started dating, and I didn't think much of it. He seemed fine. She's been seeing him for about 4 months now, which is relatively short for our family standards. We're close and like to really get to know partners before bringing them to events. Anyway, a few weeks ago, Emily texted me asking if Mark could come to Thanksgiving. Normally, I'd say yes. But the problem is what happened the last time he came over. My husband, Dan, and I hosted a small pre-Thanksgiving dinner at our place so Emily and her boyfriend could meet some of my extended family early, just a casual gathering. Things were awkward from the start. Mark immediately started criticizing the way we decorated and how the food was served. He made comments like, "Is this really all you made?" And "Wow, I wouldn't have put together like this." All in front of my parents and cousins who were visiting. I tried to laugh it off, thinking maybe he was nervous, but then he started picking at my husband's cooking, saying he'd never eaten pasta cooked like this before, and then loudly discussing a YouTube video where someone did it differently. I tried to redirect him and ignore the comments, but Emily didn't do much. She just giggled awkwardly and occasionally told me to relax. At one point, I snapped and told him, "You're welcome to your opinion, but this is my home, and I'd appreciate it if you didn't openly criticize my family's efforts." Mark looked shocked, Emily looked mortified, and my mom awkwardly changed the subject. The tension lingered the rest of the evening. After that dinner, I told Emily that I felt uncomfortable having Mark at Thanksgiving because I didn't want a repeat performance. She argued that I was overreacting, that Mark was just being honest, and that I was so controlling as usual. I reminded her that it's not about controlling her. It's about basic manners and respecting other people's homes. She got upset and said she might not even come if he couldn't attend. Fast forward to Thanksgiving prep. I spent days coordinating the event, menu planning, shopping, cleaning, and making sure seating arrangements worked for everyone. A few days before Thanksgiving, Emily texted me again, asking if Mark can come. I replied politely but firmly, explaining that I could not in good conscience invite him after how he behaved at our dinner. I told her it's important to me that family events remain respectful and comfortable for everyone, and I didn't want to deal with public criticism of the food, house, or our family members. Emily blew up. She called me controlling, said I was punishing her for dating someone I didn't like, and claimed I was ruining family traditions. She said our parents would side with her and that she couldn't believe I was being so immature. I tried to reason with her, saying this isn't about personal taste, but about basic respect and decorum. My parents actually backed me up, which surprised me. They agreed that Mark's behavior at the pre-Thanksgiving dinner was inappropriate and that I was right to want to avoid a repeat. Emily got even angrier and told me she'd skip Thanksgiving entirely if I didn't let him come. She even said she might try to show up with him anyway and that I couldn't stop her. On Thanksgiving Day, Emily did come, but she came alone. I was relieved, but there was still tension. She avoided talking to me much, and the rest of the family could sense the awkwardness. After dinner, she made a few passive-aggressive remarks like, "I guess some people just don't like fun," but overall it went okay. She left early, which was a relief. Here's the thing. I feel justified in my decision because it wasn't personal. It was about maintaining a respectful environment. Mark had been rude and critical in someone else's home, and I wasn't comfortable having him do that in front of the whole family. Emily says I'm the asshole for punishing her for dating someone and controlling her social life. My husband and parents support me, but I keep thinking maybe I overreacted. I don't want to create lasting rifts with my sister. So, Reddit, AITA for telling my sister she couldn't bring her boyfriend to Thanksgiving after he disrespected me and my family. AITA for refusing to let my sister stay at my house after she made a huge mistake with her baby. I, 32F, have always had a close relationship with my younger sister, Emma, 28F. We've lived in the same city for a while, but we don't see each other every day, maybe a few times a month for dinner or drinks. I'm married to my husband, Jason, 34M, and we have a 4-year-old daughter, Lily. Life has been good, and we have our routines, but we're generally welcoming and open-helping family when it's reasonable. That said, I think I might have crossed the line, or maybe I didn't. That's why I'm here. About 6 months ago, Emma gave birth to her first child, a boy named Max. I was beyond excited for her and made an effort to be supportive, helping with things like hospital visits, bringing meals over, and baby-proofing her apartment when she asked. From the beginning, I noticed Emma had a certain lack of foresight when it came to practical matters. She would get easily overwhelmed and sometimes made decisions that I would consider questionable, but I chalked it up to first-time parent nerves. Fast forward to last month. Emma called me in tears late one night. She said she had made a huge mistake and needed to come over immediately. I was half asleep, but agreed because she sounded frantic and scared. She arrived around midnight, carrying Max, who looked fine but was fussy. I made her some tea and asked what had happened. She admitted she had left Max in the bathtub while she ran to grab her phone charger from the bedroom, thinking he would be fine for a minute. She left him there for maybe 10 minutes and came back to find that he had slipped under the water but had already gotten out. Max was fine physically, but Emma said she felt like the worst mother alive and couldn't stay in her apartment. My initial reaction was shock and fear for Max, but I also wanted to comfort her. I told her she could stay at our place for the night, but I made it clear that I wasn't okay with leaving him unattended ever again, not even for a minute. She agreed. The night went okay, and I tried to give her space while keeping an eye on Max. The next morning, however, things started to unravel. Emma insisted on staying longer. I told her I wasn't comfortable with her staying indefinitely because she didn't seem to have a plan for supervision. She said she had no other options because she was too scared to be alone and claimed her apartment felt unsafe. I offered temporary solutions like helping her hire a postpartum doula or a babysitter, but she refused everything. She ended up staying for a week. During that time, I was exhausted. I was juggling Lily, Jason's work schedule, and Emma's constant anxiety. She would panic over minor things, Max crying, feeding schedules, diapers, and would ask me to intervene or take over. She refused to follow any routines we suggested and seemed to expect that we would accommodate every whim. Jason and I had to repeatedly set boundaries, but she would cry and guilt-trip us, saying she just couldn't cope on her own. Things came to a head on the 7th day. I had arranged for Emma to see a pediatric nurse to get advice and reassurance about Max, and I was also trying to catch up on work. Emma threw a huge tantrum, claiming that I was being cold and unsupportive, and that she felt like I didn't care about her well-being. I lost my temper and told her she needed to leave immediately because I couldn't continue putting my life on hold while she refused to take responsibility for her child. I offered to help her find temporary housing or a friend's place, but she refused and stormed out with Max, claiming she would never forgive me. Since then, she's been posting passive-aggressive things on social media and has stopped speaking to me. Mutual friends have asked me if I overreacted or if I should have been more understanding. I honestly don't know. On one hand, I feel like I did the right thing because I couldn't risk my own child's safety or my family's sanity. On the other hand, I feel guilty because I might have abandoned my sister when she really was in crisis. I have been reflecting a lot. I know that leaving a baby unattended is a serious mistake, but I also recognize that she genuinely panicked and came to me for help. I wonder if I could have handled the situation differently, maybe by setting up more structured support rather than just asking her to leave. But at the same time, I feel like she crossed a line that I could not compromise on. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister stay at my house after she made a huge mistake with her baby. Character count, 6,517 if you want. I can craft another story with a slightly more dramatic family conflict angle. It would be more emotionally charged and probably even more popular Reddit story material. Do you want me to do that next? AITA, I've been struggling with whether I'm in the wrong in this situation with my family, and I need some perspective. I, 29M, have always been very close to my younger sister, Emily, 26F. We grew up in a household where our parents were strict but fair, and Emily and I often leaned on each other for support through high school and college. That being said, we also have very different personalities. I tend to be extremely cautious and methodical, while Emily is spontaneous and can sometimes act without thinking through the consequences. Our relationship has always been a bit of a balancing act between these two extremes. About a year ago, Emily approached me with an unusual request. She had been dating a guy, Jake, 27M, for several months, and things were getting serious. Emily told me that Jake wanted to take a big step in their relationship. He wanted them to move in together. This alone wasn't shocking, but what caught me off guard was the location. Jake's family owns a large, old property in the countryside, and they offered for Emily and Jake to move into one of the outbuildings rent-free. Emily was ecstatic about the idea, but I had some reservations. I've always had some doubts about Jake's decision-making abilities, and I was worried that Emily might be rushing into this because of excitement rather than practicality. When Emily first mentioned it, I asked her some practical questions: how she planned to handle finances, what she would do if her relationship with Jake didn't work out, whether she had a plan for emergencies. Emily brushed it off, saying I was being overprotective and that she didn't want to hear what I had to say. At the time, I tried to back off, but I could tell that part of me was anxious. A few months later, Emily officially moved in with Jake. I didn't say much publicly, but I was still skeptical. Almost immediately, the move turned out to be more complicated than either of them anticipated. The building needed significant repairs that Jake's family expected them to handle themselves. Additionally, there were ongoing disputes about pets, noise, and the property's maintenance schedule. Emily was stressed, but she insisted she was happy and that everything would work out. Fast forward to last month, things came to a head. Emily called me late at night, upset and in tears. She explained that Jake had done something she described as completely irresponsible. He had taken out a significant loan under her name without telling her, claiming it was for some renovations on the property. When she confronted him, he minimized the situation and told her she should trust him. Emily, understandably furious and scared, didn't know what to do. She asked if she could come stay with me for a while to figure things out. I agreed, but I set a few boundaries up front. I told Emily that she could stay with me for a week, but we needed to set clear rules about finances, bills, and personal space. I didn't want her feeling trapped again, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't enabling any destructive behavior. Emily seemed grateful at first, but then I made a suggestion that apparently became the point of contention. I told her that maybe she should consider breaking up with Jake. I didn't phrase it as a demand, but I did explain why I thought the relationship was unhealthy. Lack of transparency, financial irresponsibility, and repeated patterns of dismissive behavior. Emily immediately got defensive. She argued that she loved Jake, that she could manage the situation, and that I didn't understand their relationship. I tried to stay calm and reiterated that I only wanted what was best for her and that I was worried about her being manipulated or taken advantage of. Instead of discussing it, Emily stormed out of my apartment the next morning. She didn't speak to me for several days, and when she finally texted, she said that I had no right to interfere in her relationship and that I was being controlling. I was shocked. I hadn't demanded that she break up with Jake. I'd only given my perspective and offered her support. I thought I was acting like a concerned sibling, not an authoritarian figure. Our parents got involved at this point. I explained the situation from my side, and Emily explained hers. My parents sided partially with both of us, but seemed frustrated that the family tension had escalated so dramatically. Emily has now moved back into the countryside property with Jake, and she's blocked me on social media and refuses to answer calls. I've tried reaching out a few times with neutral messages, but she hasn't responded. I know families often have disagreements over relationships, but I genuinely believed I was trying to protect my sister from a potentially harmful situation. Now, though, I'm questioning whether I overstepped. Should I have just let her figure things out on her own, even if it meant she might make serious mistakes? Or was I wrong to voice my concerns so directly, even with her best interests in mind? I feel like there's a fine line between being protective and being controlling, and I can't tell if I crossed it. So, Reddit, AITA for telling my sister that breaking up with her boyfriend might be the best choice, and for trying to intervene in what she sees as a personal matter? Or was I justified in trying to protect her from potential financial and emotional harm? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after he humiliated me in front of my whole family. This is going to be long, but I really want to give all the details so the situation is clear. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 24F, who is engaged to a man named Daniel, 27M. For some context, Emily and I have always been close, though we have very different personalities. She's more easygoing and laid back, while I tend to be very structured and careful, especially when it comes to hosting people in my home. Our parents live out of state, so holidays usually involve me hosting everyone in my apartment in the city. So here's what happened. About 2 weeks ago, Emily and Daniel announced they wanted to come spend the weekend with me and my fiancé, Ryan, 30M. I had just moved into a new apartment a few months ago, and while it's cozy, it's not huge. I offered to host them, but I made it clear that since space is limited, we need to coordinate sleeping arrangements and try to keep things tidy. Emily agreed, saying Daniel was super easygoing and doesn't mind roughing it. I was already a little uneasy because I've had issues with guests in the past who don't respect boundaries, but I brushed it off because it's my sister and I wanted to be hospitable. The first evening was fine. We had dinner, chatted, and things seemed normal. The trouble started the next morning. I planned a brunch for the four of us. I spent hours preparing and organizing everything, and I even asked Daniel in advance if he had any dietary restrictions, which he said he didn't. When it was time to eat, I realized he had brought his own gourmet ingredients from home and proceeded to criticize every single dish I made. He said my avocado toast was slightly underripe, my omelet was too fluffy for a real chef, and my homemade pastries could use more sophistication. He made these comments in front of Emily and Ryan, laughing as if it was a joke. I tried to shrug it off, but I could feel myself turning red. After brunch, I suggested we play some board games I had recently bought. Daniel immediately dismissed all my choices, saying they were childish, and insisted we play a complicated game he had brought with him that none of us had ever played. I tried to politely explain that I didn't know the rules, but he rolled his eyes and basically forced us into playing. During the game, he kept mocking me for my strategy, saying things like, "Wow, you're really bad at this for an adult, and do you even know what you're doing?" Again, he was laughing in front of everyone, and Emily barely defended me. The breaking point came that evening. We were all sitting in the living room, and Daniel suddenly said, "Hey, I have an idea. Why don't I take over the apartment for a bit? I'll reorganize your kitchen. It looks like a disaster." I laughed nervously, thinking he was joking, but he wasn't. He started moving things around and critiquing every shelf, drawer, and utensil. He openly told me my organizational system was chaotic and inefficient, even though it works perfectly for me and Ryan. At that moment, I snapped. I told him firmly that this was my home, that I had prepared meals, games, and plans, and that he was not welcome to treat me or my space like a joke. Daniel looked shocked, and Emily seemed upset but didn't say anything. He mumbled something about being just trying to help, and I said, "No, this is not helping. You are being rude, disrespectful, and humiliating me in my own home. You can leave if you want, but you will not stay here tonight." Emily immediately tried to mediate, saying, "Come on, it's just a weekend, don't make it a big deal," but I held my ground. I told her I wasn't going to allow someone who was actively belittling me to stay under my roof. Daniel stormed out, calling me overreactive and controlling. Emily followed him, apologizing profusely and saying she would handle things. She ended up taking him to a hotel for the night. I spent the evening feeling stressed, but also relieved that the confrontation was over. The next day, Emily returned and asked if Daniel could come back. I said no, explaining calmly that his behavior had been unacceptable and that I would not tolerate someone treating me this way. She became upset and accused me of ruining their weekend and being unreasonable. Our parents called later that day and also said I should have just ignored it and let Daniel stay. It's not a big deal. They said I was being too harsh and that I needed to compromise for family harmony. I understand where they are coming from, but I also feel that my boundaries were completely disrespected and that no one should treat someone like that in their own home. Emily hasn't spoken much since then. She texted me once saying, "I hope we can move past this, but I haven't responded because I don't want to reopen the fight until she calms down. My fiancé, Ryan, fully supports my decision and said he would have done the same. I'm now stuck wondering if I was really overreacting. Was I too harsh by not letting Daniel stay? Or was this a reasonable boundary to set after being humiliated in front of family? AITA? Character count. 6,438 if you want. I can create 2 more variations of this type of story with similar tension and drama that could easily go viral on Reddit. They would each be around the same length and tone. Do you want me to do that next? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she disinvited my partner for personal reasons. I, 28F, have always been close to my sister, Megan, 32F. Growing up, we had the typical sibling dynamic of rivalry and camaraderie, but as adults, we genuinely became friends. Megan has always been the type to plan things meticulously, especially when it comes to her social life, parties, and most recently, her wedding. I have always supported her and helped wherever I could. I have to admit, I was genuinely excited when she got engaged to her fiancé, Ryan, 35M, last year. I've been with my partner, Alex, 30M, for about 4 years. We live together, have a solid relationship, and even share a dog. Alex is generally laid back and friendly, but he has some traits that some people find polarizing. He's blunt and doesn't sugarcoat his opinions, which sometimes rubs people the wrong way. I thought Megan and Ryan would see past that, but apparently they didn't. About 6 months ago, Megan approached me privately and said she wanted to talk about the wedding guest list. She mentioned that Ryan had concerns about certain people and wanted to limit potential conflicts. I assumed she meant distant relatives or old friends, and I wasn't worried. Then she hesitated, looked uncomfortable, and said, "About Alex. I don't think Ryan is comfortable having him at the wedding." I was taken aback. I asked why. Megan said, "Well, he could be a little intense. Ryan had a few interactions with him at the barbecue last summer, and he felt uncomfortable." I asked her to elaborate, and she said Ryan felt Alex was overly opinionated and could ruin the vibe. I was stunned because Alex hasn't had any confrontation with Ryan other than small talk, which was never negative. I told Megan I thought it was unfair and asked if we could find a compromise. Maybe Alex could avoid sitting at the same table as Ryan's friends, or just be extra mindful. Megan looked uneasy and said, "I've tried, but Ryan is adamant. He doesn't want any potential drama. I'm sorry, I really am, but I can't change his mind." I felt hurt, but tried to reason with myself. Maybe this was just about Ryan wanting to avoid tension. I suggested Alex could attend, but just keep a low profile. Megan hesitated and then said something that really shocked me. "Actually, I think it's better if he doesn't come at all. I don't want to deal with the possibility of a scene. I hope you understand." I was speechless. I asked if she was joking. She wasn't. I tried to express how hurtful this was. Alex and I have never caused a scene anywhere, and the idea of excluding him from my own sister's wedding felt like a personal attack on our relationship. Megan said she was caught between Ryan and me and begged me to understand that she was doing this for the sake of a perfect day. After talking it over with Alex, he agreed that he didn't want to cause a scene either, but he was extremely hurt and angry that we weren't even being consulted about a solution. I felt the same way. We both felt like Megan had made a unilateral decision that basically said, "My fiancé matters more than my sister." I texted Megan and told her that while I understood she wanted to avoid conflict, I could not attend the wedding if Alex wasn't welcome. I explained that this was a deal breaker because our relationship is serious and we are essentially family. I told her I loved her and wished her happiness, but I could not compromise my partner's dignity and my own. Megan's response was immediate and icy. She called me selfish, accusing me of putting Alex above family and making her wedding about me and my relationship problems. She said she was disappointed and that I was choosing to be dramatic. Ryan also sent a brief message saying he appreciated my position, but insisted that his boundaries be respected. I didn't respond further. I made my peace with missing the wedding, but the fallout has been intense. My parents are furious with me, saying I'm overreacting and that I should just bite the bullet for one day. My friends are split. Some say I'm right to stand by my partner, while others think I should have just gone solo. Megan hasn't spoken to me much since the text exchange. When she does, it's passive-aggressive. She keeps posting wedding updates on social media, tagging everyone but me. I feel hurt, betrayed, and frustrated because I truly thought our relationship was stronger than this. I've tried reaching out, but Megan either avoids the topic or accuses me of being dramatic. I'm starting to wonder if I overreacted. Should I have just gone to the wedding alone? Or should I stick to my principles? I feel like attending without Alex would be endorsing the idea that it's acceptable for someone to be excluded from family events for arbitrary reasons. But I also feel like I've lost my sister over this, which makes me sad and anxious. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she disinvited my partner for personal reasons. The situation has left me feeling trapped between loyalty to my partner and loyalty to my family. Every attempt at compromise seems to fall flat, and every discussion ends with accusations of being selfish or dramatic. I don't want to escalate things further, but at the same time, I feel like giving in would betray my own values and the respect I owe my relationship. I just don't know how to move forward. I miss my sister and the relationship we used to have, but I can't ignore how she and Ryan have treated Alex. I've tried to think of ways to attend the wedding while maintaining my integrity, but the options all seem either impossible or emotionally damaging. This entire situation has left me feeling like I'm standing in the middle of a battlefield with no safe ground. On one hand, I want to celebrate my sister and her happiness. On the other hand, I cannot and will not allow my partner to be disrespected in such a blatant manner. I keep going back and forth, replaying conversations, thinking about how I could have handled things differently, or if I could have convinced Megan to reconsider. But the more I think about it, the more I feel like the problem isn't me. It's the way Megan and Ryan decided to handle the situation without consulting us or try to reach a reasonable compromise. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding under these circumstances? Or is it unreasonable to expect my family to prioritize my relationship alongside Megan's happiness? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.